Hi!
Hi!
Welcome back. I'm going to say welcome back. And if you're new, welcome for the first time.
Yes. This is Subtitles.
In Spanglish.
In Spanglish.
Yes, and that's Christina.
I'm Christina Ochoa, and that's Karen.
Hi.
I like that we almost introduced each other, sort of.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't planned. So, by the way, we also have a podcast that we do in Spanish, and it's released on Mondays. Mm-hmm. And it's called SUBTITLES, which is subtitles in Spanish for those of you that couldn't figure it out. I feel like a lot of you could have figured that out.
I feel like it's a pretty safe bet.
Well, that's on Mondays. We don't always do the same topic that we do in English, but it's good for those of you that want to learn, because we have very different accents. Mm-hmm.
And if you want to practice your Spanish, it's always a good thing to watch.
Right?
I think we're very animated.
We're animated. It's 30 minutes. You won't get that tired.
Exactly.
Anyway, that's the plug.
Yes.
And now we're going to talk about movie stars and TV stars.
Okay. Because
it's in flux, if that's the right way to say it.
Yeah.
Right? It's fluxing?
It's flux.
For those movie stars out there, for those movie stars that are watching, do you guys feel like you're fluxing right now? What it is just the idea that that there used to be movie stars and TV stars, and never the twain shall meet. So basically, no TV stars ever launched into like a huge movie career. Maybe they did, but few. And movie stars were very reluctant to do television because it was just unbecoming.
Look, I think,
lower status.
Yeah, oh gosh. Well, here's what my generalized opinion on what actors normally tend to gravitate towards.
All right.
And that is, they go where the talent goes.
Oh, I thought you were going to say money.
Well, the talent goes where the money goes. So I guess it kind of like, it follows those steps. Mm-hmm. But like the good writers and, the good directors and stuff used to be exclusively in film.
Right.
And then everything in TV was kind of like where you got your chops. Right? That's where you would learn your training ground. That's where people do soaps. It is more for just like a steady job. It's a steady paycheck. A lot of people with families would go into TV because that's kind of like where they wanted to settle into place.
Yeah. Okay.
Then the money started going into TV, and TV started being shot not just like soaps and sitcoms and stuff, but now all of a sudden you have these shows that are being shot like movies, like extended movies. Limited series and this and that. And so I think that the good writers, the writers who wanted freedom, the writers who wanted to have a specific point of view, the directors who wanted to do something maybe a little more risque or interesting or whatever, ended up going there because they could bypass a lot of the hurdles that in film, especially film funding, you have to, unless you're in a studio feature, like you have to overcome.
It sounds like too with the advent of cable, right? So suddenly people were able to do or broach topics that you couldn't do on network, right? Because you had families that you were catering to and so on. And so probably HBO, and I'm sure there's many articles written about it, which I have not read. But my guess is you get to do like a Sopranos type thing, right? And suddenly they were hiring like all the good writers are thinking, maybe I want to do this for the same steady paycheck, and also for being able to do all the sex scenes and violence that they wanted that make television so great now on cable. And then I wonder if we can think of any actors, like what the first ones were, like cross, I'm not going to say back, down, across to television from movies.
Well, I'm just thinking, I mean, not the first. The ones that I'm thinking about now are, the Reese Witherspoons, and not to kind of touch on that same thing, but Ryan Phillippe did the same thing when he did with Shooter and stuff.
Yeah. We were just talking about Julia Roberts has done
Patrick Dempsey, was he a TV or
he was like an 80s movie star, and then he did Grey's Anatomy, right? That's true.
So I feel like that was probably part of the original
and then
merger.
I think, and some, maybe again to go back to The Sopranos, James Gandolfini, afterward, that launched him and made him just a star across the board, right?
And what about the Wire, right? Didn't that have a couple of actors that were like very Claire
Idris Elba was in the Wire,
in Homeland and stuff too.
Oh, for sure.
So there's a lot, and the truth is now it's funny because I think at the beginning, those quote unquote, let's call them pioneers of those, movie stars that ended up going to TV, they were doing so because they wanted the opportunity to maybe tackle not only these topics, but also have that steady paycheck and also really chew into a character and do something extensive, right? Because it is true. In TV, you do have the benefit of an evolving and growing story where you get to really inhabit a character in a way that in movies sometimes you don't.
Right.
And they, you know, like they did that transition. Now, a couple of years later, not only is all the good talent kind of like going back and forth between the two mediums, but the money is. So to answer your earlier question too, now you make more money in TV than you do in film.
Yeah.
By far.
Right.
Because unless you're in that top echelon where you are Tom Cruise or you are, you know, most TV stars are making, you know, per episode as much money as some film stars.
Right. The guys from Friends, I think, were they the first ones to make $1 million per episode?
I think at the time it was
monstrous.
that was monstrous, but now that's not uncommon.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
but at the time,
right.
You know, and especially in a big ensemble cast.
And they were international already at that point, I believe, right?
So they were the biggest show ever.
Every Euro that I meet loves Friends.
Everyone knows Friends.
Yeah.
Name one person, young, old, even the young new kids and stuff. They know Friends.
Unless
Everybody
they were
knows
homeschooled,
Friends.
Maybe even the homeschooled kids.
Even
know.
homeschooled kids know Friends.
They know.
There's a few things that I feel like everywhere around the world are renowned, and like Urkel, I feel like was also renowned.
He went to UCLA with me.
Family Matters.
Yeah.
Like I feel like he was
Steve Urkel.
Will Smith, Fresh Prince.
Yeah.
Is international.
He was
Friends
cool, though.
is international.
Yeah.
And I can't really think of maybe Saved by the Bell. I know in Europe we have a lot of the originals, but I don't know if it's across the board. But those, I feel like those are shows that made it everywhere. And they went into syndication so fast.
Right, yeah. And that, I mean, TV to movie star, Will Smith, of course, mega super famous, and also rapper, Mr. Multi-talent.
And TV to movie star, you have a lot of it. Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah. He was in Silver Spoons. That is a very old reference.
Kate Winslet, too. She was in like some British... I want to say like TV show, Minnie Driver.
That's the thing about the British, though.
Ricky Gervais, all those.
I feel like the with the Brits, that kind of back and forthing between television, film, even theater, it feels like they all kind of do that, and that there wasn't any kind of stigma. The same way it felt like that was kind of happening in the States, where it was like, you're in TV or you're in film, and if you never get a movie role again, well, still, like, oh, God forbid, you should do television. But it feels like over there, like, it's all maybe either good quality, or if you're a working actor, that's your job. It doesn't have that status and that specialness that I think we assign to it here of like,
oh, of course not. Because I think, well, the difference is because you don't have royalty.
Oh, right. We don't.
Like everywhere else in the world, we have
Kennedys, but they don't really count.
You know,
not like that.
But if you compare, the Kennedys were stars, and they're like
America's royalty or whatever.
Right, but I'm saying like everywhere else in the world, we have people that are in positions of power that are so much more to us, someone to be reverential to.
Right.
That actors are just actors. They're like famous painters or famous singers. It's like, they're amazing. Rock stars are amazing.
Yeah.
But they're not royalty. And I think in the States, they've become celebrities, not even actors. Celebrities have become royalty.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But that being said, like, I'm thinking back to Mr. Bean. Because he was like a failed attempt into going into movies, right? Like his movies, I think Mr. Bean movies worked, maybe. I can't remember very well, like if they were a success or not. But I remember he was super successful as a TV actor.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wait, he did a show called Blackadder. Do you know about that one?
No.
It's kind of like I want to say it's like a medieval sort of comedy thing. Surprise, of course it's comedy. Although it'd be killer if Mr. Bean got into like high drama. So I heard something about him that he actually has like a stammer or a stutter. One of the reasons that it's all...
That he does a lot of like silent
films.
Well, TV.
And I think he studied some sort of engineering, like maybe chemical or electrical engineering. So also... Smart guy.
He's so smart. I have to say that comedy is international, obviously, because it's silent too, but like it's universal more than just international.
Yeah.
Like he is so smart about the beats, the human, the moments. Like
a Chaplin-esque type person, right?
It's just brilliant.
Yeah, it's another kind of humor.
It really is. It's a skill that very few people have, I think, and he's fantastic.
Do you think he's method?
I hope so. I wish you were.
The method
I know the method conversation.
That's, you know what, I had an afterthought. We did discuss, how like method actors, it's
always the drama,
dramatic
mean,
method, right?
aggressive.
And that, you don't do method comedy or method nice people. But I think the reason that you can't do, I swear I have some fluff from the sweater. It's gonna, there we go. I think it's gone. I think that you can't do method funny because it's too hard to be funny all the time. But you can always be angry. It's very easy to be pissed off or sour or anxious. But to be method hilarious, that means you're just a phenomenal comedian.
Yeah, what do they call that now? Toxic positivity or whatever? Who called it that? I can't remember. But anyway, yes.
Right. Toxic positivity is when I'm trying to get you
to just get over it and be happy.
Get over it and or either not acknowledge or downplay your problems.
Well, back to
that's probably a real thing, but it's also an annoying.
It's so annoying. Yeah. Anyway, but
let's write that down. Toxic positivity.
Excuse me. Toxic positivity.
Is that boring you now?
Yeah, sorry, I had to yawn. It's contagious, so I think I saw the dog yawn.
Toxic boredom.
But
continue.
The George Clooney is a very famous. Went from soaps and ER and TV.
Yes.
To then suddenly becoming the world's biggest movie
star. Is it dawn? I just heard a bird.
I know, I heard a bird.
How long have we been podcasting, for the love of God? George Clooney was also on a really big show.
George Clooney was on ER. No.
He's also very naturally funny. I think he's a funny guy. And he apparently likes to do a lot of jokes, pranks on people.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to
the transition.
Yeah, the transition. I mean, I wonder if he'll ever do a television thing. It seems like he's very much movies.
He does. I mean, he produces a lot of television, and he's done a couple of limited series. I want to say, didn't he do Catch-22 or something like that? He did a couple of them. He's done a few, but I think he's more into directing and stuff now, from what I gather. Still acting and stuff.
But there's still the idea of film. But the pandemic has made it really interesting because guys Inception guy, ¿cómo se llama?
Leonardo DiCaprio?
Nope. Director, writer, Christopher Nolan.
Oh, Nolan.
He and maybe it was Scorsese or Spielberg. They're very much to the theater experience, right? And you could still make a movie, but it's shown on television. Does that make it television?
No.
Okay. Well,
here's my theory is
made for TV movies.
Those are movies
for TV.
They're normally not very. There are some good ones.
There are, normally, but that's what's changing. I think
it's changing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But beginning, middle, and end. It's a closed story.
Yeah.
That's how I think of film. Even in the trilogies and whatever, because they're just massive, epic, whatever. Mm-hmm. The way they're shot is very different. The process is very different. It's not like a writer's room. It's normally one writer or two, and the director is the one who is in charge.
Got it.
It's his vision.
Yeah.
That's for film.
Mm-hmm.
For TV, the writers run the world. So for TV, it's the directors are guests in your house. They come in and they are there to serve the story as it was already established.
Right.
They don't get to put their big spin. It's not like suddenly they can shoot their entire episode, you know what I mean, with weird lens flares and stuff. Yeah. If you're doing, Downton Abbey or something. I don't know. It's just not how it works. So in general, TV has always been a writer's medium and film has been a director's medium.
Good to know. Actually, I kind of learned that by becoming friends with you, which in the past I didn't even register when you'd see something like the Emmy Awards or whatever, and different directors would be nominated for episodes. And I was like, that's weird, because I assumed that there was one director for the TV show.
Yeah.
And the way that they're submitted and all that, and just the idea that you're hiring and then they're journeyman directors, I guess. The idea that they're just migrating and doing a bunch of different shows. And you're right. Yeah. They have obviously a certain skill set. They can be super talented. They can make an episode better than somebody else's episode.
100%.
But ultimately they still have to kind of keep within the certain boundaries of somebody else's predefined
it's
pilot, right?
Giving your real estate agent credit for designing the house. That's not
right.
They could have great taste. They could know how to show you and sell it to you and explain it to you and walk you through it in a way that you fall in love with it. They can give you the history of it, but they didn't build it.
Right.
That's, so I think that's a big difference. Whereas in film, the writers a lot of the time are almost, the writers that I know that I've spoken to, sometimes they feel negligible. They feel I gave them this thing and then they just took it and then they never even go to set. They don't get to go to set.
That
they don't
happened to my
get
friend.
to, do anything.
I think he visited set, but it was like
a visitor.
Yeah, a visitor. I don't want to say persona non grata either.
Yeah.
But he had just to sit back and watch these things happen and watch them like
and
say
they
we're going to
change
cut
a
this
lot
scene.
more in the writing. They change a lot more in the movie because they can, because it's a closed loop again. So like they actually change it a lot more. Whereas a director can't come to set for Animal Kingdom or for a TV show and then suddenly change the ending of the episode. Right. Even if it's a better story to them, because there's another episode coming that needs to tie in.
Yeah, right.
So like you don't have that freedom.
Yeah.
Whereas on film, if they wanted to change the whole ending and be like, you know what, we're going to end it with the explosion, they can do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big difference. I do think now you have shows that are limited series a lot of the times, or anthologies, where directors will go and just direct all of them.
All of them, yeah.
And I think that's great.
I like limited series. It used to really frustrate me to go back to the British stuff. I used to be like, hey, this is a random number of episodes and like a bizarre amount of time, right? But obviously because in television we used to, now because of streamers and everything, it doesn't matter so much, but like, very set amount of time and commercial breaks and so on and so forth. And I'd watch some British series and I'm like, 7 episodes, what the hell, right?
Yeah.
But they were great. And at the end of it, you wanted more, but they were like, screw you, this is the end of the series. But it did really, really well because like they ended it where they should have, or at least it felt that way.
Yeah.
And here, I think a lot of times they tend to just keep making shows until the show dies. And it's a limping old man.
Really, unfortunately, especially procedurals, which I've been very lucky I've never actually had to do. But I have a lot of friends who do, and they're entertainment.
Yeah.
They're not art, and the way they even describe it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, look, we are doing these procedurals, and we're going to make them until they don't make money.
Yeah, right.
That's the reality, because each episode is like its own mini little movie.
Yeah.
So they do have they can close that loop whatever they want, which is nice.
Right.
But, a lot of the time that becomes a job. And the people doing procedurals, which is the kind of show that you just, the CSIs and the whatever, they're very successful. You enjoy watching them, but you can put them on and you can miss an episode and you're fine.
Okay. That's the stability, that's the paycheck that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And like,
and they serve its purpose. How many, it's kind of like shows that have like, I don't know how many, episodes. Yeah. Like, oh my God, there's 6 seasons. And you get excited because you're like, oh, that's so much time that I can just leave it idle while I do something else and watch and do it on the...
If you guys watch it, if you like the comedian John Mulaney at all, he really, really is in a Law & Order Special Victims Unit. And so because these things go on and on, you really get to know these characters. He talks about how Ice-T's character is always still shocked about like certain things happening. He works in the...
Wait, so he murdered... What is it?
He likes little girls with pigtails, and he's like, yeah, Ice, you work New York's most sensitive cases. Like, this shouldn't be news to you. And how it just goes on and on. But anyway, there's also the typical, like, you start getting these characters that, like, hey, did you see this guy? Witnesses that apparently... even though they're being approached about a murder, never stop, wiping down the bar table or keep loading crates onto a thing, even though they're being asked, like, this guy that you work with murdered a man. And he's like, yeah, all right. And he's still loading crates up onto the thing. He doesn't stop and say, Tony killed a guy? And you're like, yeah, that happens in all of these because they are procedurals. Yeah. Right? So you've got to have the ingredient of like, anyway. And then in film.
Cinema.
You don't have procedural films. They should try that.
We'll be right back and we'll talk about procedural films.
We're going to do,
Yes, we're going to make it happen.
Whole new genre.
Yes. And we're back. Talking about
procedural movies, which is
Fast and the Furious.
The Fast and the Furious. I have not seen a single one.
I loved them. I have to admit, I haven't seen all of them. I think there's 25,000.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. And I've told you multiple times, it's worth watching them because they are exactly what they're meant to be.
Right.
Like, and they know this, and the more you watch, like, the second and the third and whatever, when they started really knowing what they were, they get meta. Like, they know.
But there's no through line, right? They're just, but it's a procedural in that way. Like, they're standalone. I could watch...
Same characters,
3, 4, 5, 6. Right,
yes.
new story. So
same characters,
it is very much a procedural movie.
Yes.
So, yeah, it exists. So they did that, and check. And Jessica was telling us about Marvel and Star Wars, and they're also getting into TV. I have not seen Wanda and oh my god, say it. I love him. WandaVision. Thank you, Vision. He is the hottest human robot crossover ever. Even the red skin, I'm like, I'm okay with it. I also love Paul Bettany.
He's fantastic. He's so good.
Yeah.
He and his wife, both. I love them both.
Also her. God, she's like,
they're just
girl crushed.
Yeah,
I think she's just the prettiest thing ever.
Yeah, you look a lot like her.
I mean, I'll take it.
Take it. Just take it. Leave it at that. No follow it up. Exactly. Take it. So for those of you who aren't watching, if you're listening to the podcast, now you know, Karen looks
vaguely, passingly
like Jennifer Connelly. In Labyrinth.
And Labyrinth.
Oh.
And Celine Dion. So I don't know, whatever, work that out.
But yeah, so Marvel, Star Wars, they're doing a TV. Well, here's also one of the things, right? They want to capitalize now on being able to tap into that consistent audience, and new franchises will allow younger generations who maybe haven't grown up with it to kind of expand on that as well. And look, the reality is film is much more expensive to do.
Right.
Because you don't get to amortize your assets.
That's right.
So you build a set.
We can use that econ lingo, Christina.
Thank you. It's just 'cause in Spanish it's easy. Amortizar. It's used all the time. So sounds it sounds fancy in English, but in Spanish it's used all the time.
So it's like with loans. Anyway, moving on.
But anyway, so you build a set, and then you use it once, and then you destroy it.
Right.
For the most part, those assets do not continue to be used. They can be used in another production. Someone else has to buy them, whatever.
Yes.
But like in general, in TV, they're building these sets, these amazing, massive, like, spaceships and like Millennium Falcons and like all these things. And now they get enough content with TV that they can actually, if you break it down per episode, it costs a lot less.
Yeah. Just big up front, and then after that,
exactly,
you're cruising.
Like, and if you have more seasons, like we have things where if we're using, we have a house that we build, and 6 seasons in, we're still using the same sets. You never have to touch them. Maybe you put a different mug and plates in the dishwasher, but you're good to go.
I guess it's that routine, though, too, that made that sort of like, oh, TV is less than, right? Because of the routine aspect of it.
Yeah.
And the specialness of, like, it's a one-and-done film experience. But Jessica brought up the idea, which is a great one, talking about indies, which less expensive, obviously, to produce, string budget and all that. Weirder topics, because they're not even counting on such a huge audience. If
indies technically can have as big of a budget as they want.
Oh, they're just not studios.
They're just not studio films, so they're independently funded.
Right.
Nowadays...
Making it more difficult, though, to get the
It is.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, a lot of the time you just have to sell distribution rights first in order to get that funding.
Seduced and Abandoned.
Seduced and Abandoned. So good.
It is
Listen
hilarious.
to our episode. It's in Spanish, right? We recorded in Spanish.
Did we?
Watch the movie Seduced and Abandoned.
No, we reviewed it. I think we did it in English.
Really? I can't remember.
We don't remember what language it was in, but... It's a great film.
It's a great movie.
Turns out, so it's the name of an actual
Baldwin.
Italian movie, but produced in that part doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's Alec Baldwin and this producer guy whose name we forget now. And it's their whole experience in Cannes trying to get funding for a film. And boy, it is hard.
Yeah.
It is not it's a process that is not...
For the lighthearted?
Yes.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you feel great.
Yeah.
And it kind of...
Seduced and Abandoned. I mean, the title says it all.
Yeah.
I would say. You feel
it's
like that.
Begging for money, essentially.
Which is never pleasant, and some people have a knack for it, and I applaud the people who are great salesmen and salespeople and saleswomen, sales everything.
Yeah.
But like, I genuinely feel like that is something so hard to do, even if you're super talented and skilled at it.
Yeah. Well, it's the art. and then the financing, right? Like people that are going to put their money behind something want to know that it'll be successful, and art be damned. They need to know that it needs to tick certain boxes because they need the foreign audience and so on. And then you end up with weird stuff like that Matt Damon movie, about the Great Wall of China, maybe. Like I
don't remember this one.
That's probably why, because Matt Damon was the movie. I think it was like. It's just a mishmash and funding issues and so on. Well, so you're going to end up with weird casts, I think, more and more in the future of people that are famous abroad. That we're like, who's that? Yeah. Might be cool, but also probably just a way to get funding.
Also, though, like, as far as the indies go, when we were talking about, like, the actors going into indies, a lot of the time, it is a lot of TV actors that end up going to do indies and stuff on the side. I would chuck that to a couple of reasons. One, timing. If you're on a show and you only have 2 months off out of your year because you're shooting 22 episodes a year, and so you're working, you don't have the availability to go shoot other movies. Indies, sometimes if you're an asset enough of an actor, they will accommodate for your break. And that's huge. And then also, the second one is a lot of the time, the freedom. If an actor has been doing TV for a long time where they kind of have been in one character, they get to break into another one, and also they get to do with it a lot of the time almost like what they want, right? Yeah. Any risk that they couldn't take on TV because the character's already established, they can't be breaking, kind of like context and stuff and like previous stories. All of a sudden, they get to just, like, play. Yeah. That's
got to be a nice experience, yeah.
And, again, if it's a very small budget indie, they kind of get to they get to be the ones who have the authority over their character. Yeah. Which only happens in TV after 3 or 4 seasons in. Yeah. Until then, you're being told what to do. After 4 seasons, no one's really telling you what to do because no one knows the character as well as you. But I think that is very appealing for a lot of actors. But the timing, especially, people don't realize it's also timed because auditions and casting for projects happens at such a different time than the actual production itself. Because everything depends on who's in it. So if you don't have that yet with those dates, they can't move on with their production, and sometimes they can't wait for you to see if you can be in it. Yeah. They got a job to do.
Yeah, they got a job.
They got a job to do.
It always struck me as weird, too, like with actors promoting movies that they shot 2-3 years ago and having to talk about it as though they shot it, that summer. Yeah. And they're like, I love working with, as though it's a concurrent thing and they've probably already shot 3 or 4 other films. It must be an odd experience.
It's hard. I shot 2 movies during this pandemic, actually. And I don't think either of them is going to come out, even this year. Oh. I think they're coming out 2022.
Just because of release?
Because of the way it's done, and post is probably taking longer, and COVID has not helped in any way the schedules for things. And I'm not going to lie, I'm going to have to reread the scripts. Because there's parts where I'm like, wait a second, wait, what? Who was the other? Or I don't remember the name of the other people's characters. Right. Because now I know them and they're like my friends. And it's like, wait, what was Mo's name? Mo McRae. But it's like, what's the character? I can't remember. Yeah. So it is going to be like interesting to see that because normally shows, it's different because it's the timing of it is usually... Sorry, I'm just hearing my dog in the background and I'm really hoping you guys don't. But yeah, that was it.
I lost my train of thought. Is there anything over here? SNL! Oh my god.
That's Karen's favorite topic,
It is my favorite topic. There's usually
again, Jess brought this up. And
and I was like, duh! I loved her more in that moment. I'd say there's probably an SNL sketch for pretty much any subject of conversation that I could reference. Yes. Just been watching it my whole life. Even when they were like, this season sucks. I'm like, still gonna watch it. Still do. Probably like I'm a little more erratic about it, especially now that you can get it on Hulu. Online, so I don't have to have that like it's 11:30 on Saturday night. But oh boy, do I love it. I love sketch comedies.
I think you have referenced sketches apropos of an actual conversation we've been having and sent them to me. Yeah. Over probably 50 times.
Yeah, and that's when I wasn't holding back. Do you know how many times I've thought of a sketch and I'm like, just let it go, Karen. Not everybody cares. I've forced people to watch sketches and they're like, it's funny. And I feel like either it's a lack of understanding or I'm not expressing it. Like, I need them to understand. And anyway, I'm sure a lot of you are like that out there. It's sketch comedies just nail it. Like, what was the one about the blender? Oh my god, it was so great. It had Sarah Silverman. It's not the magic bullet. It's not the ninja. What's the other super famous? What's the super famous blender? Jess, anything? It's the really expensive blender that's not a ninja. Vitamix.
Oh, Vitamix.
Mother of God. Google the Vitamix Sarah Silverman SNL sketch. And they nail it's because it's so fast, right?
Yeah.
It's happening. It's kind of like South Park, where they are able to turn around episodes or make sketches so quickly that it's really timely. Yeah.
Or used to be, most of it.
Right. You could perform it live, but they also write the sketches that week.
Yeah.
So they're commenting beyond the news part that's obviously extremely current, but they capture your favorite word, zeitgeist.
Yeah.
She loves a good zeitgeist.
I love the word zeitgeist.
Don't you love it? Yeah. Anyway, maybe a lot of you agree with me.
But a lot of them are going off to do movies.
They do. So the whole SNL production world, Lorne Michaels and all that, I think they kind of manage you, or contractually you're in their world. So all these movies that you're seeing are also part of like an extension of SNL.
Got it.
So I'm sure after that they've done.
I don't know if that sounds great or sucks to me.
Who knows?
It's weird.
Right?
It feels like one of those catch too.
It's like you're lucky to get on it. If you're there long enough, you're probably like, I need the independence. It's probably like any situation, right? But like Kristen Wiig's gone well beyond, of course, the SNL thing. But I'm sure that.
But they probably still take a commission or whatever it is if they're managing her. And
that part I don't know about management, but just that whatever. Maybe either offshoots directly related to sketches on the show. I think that makes a lot of sense. Of course. But also beyond that, they may also kind of still be within that world. Or Lorne is producing things and just hires old cast members, and you're in the family. You know.
But that's also a transition. I mean, that's jumping from TV, from something very fast paced, something. And I use this analogy a lot because we've talked about it. The one that David Straighten, one of my directors, he's done everything under the sun. He's done Narcos, showrunner for House,
he really
everything.
has. Yeah.
He's amazing. And he was talking about how TV, for the most part, is the gesture drawing of your masterpiece.
Oh,
so the skill is very different. It's not that it's less than. It's just, some things are sketches and gesture drawing is fast. And it's like, here's an impression of what I would do if I had the time, the money, the space and the rehearsals and all of it to give you a real good thing.
Yeah. Okay.
We just need the impression. And that's what TV is, because that's how fast it moves. It is every week. Our writers are in the writers' room every week. We shoot episodes every 7 days normally. Sometimes less, sometimes more, but for the most part it's 7 shooting days. While you're doing one episode, you're prepping another, you're cutting another one, you're doing so it's a machine.
Yeah. That's why you hear all those stories about people may complain that actors complain, but the thing is, if they're sick or whatever is going on in their lives, they have to show up and perform.
Of course.
Because of that, right? There's no flexibility. If you have a certain set at a certain time, there's no going back 2 days later because, she had the sniffles. It's like, psh, you don't have the sniffles anymore.
And actors, unfortunately,
right?
they're the only ones who can't be replaced.
Right.
Because, look, worst case scenario, you could get a great director to come in for the week, last minute, to come and try and take over as a favor, whatever.
Yeah.
You could get a gaffer, you could get a best boy, you could get a producer to come in, you could get a sound guy. You can't, you could CGI our faces at this point, but that's about it.
Or just shoot you just washing dishes the whole time from the back. And
you're never going to put a different actor in that place for an episode, and it's just going to be this is now Jessica. It's what? No. So if we do get sick, a lot of the time there's a lot of liability issues and stuff too. So they have to have a doctor that's through the production or the studio. They have to come verify that you're sick, that you can't come to work.
Yeah.
You can't take a sick day. That doesn't exist.
Right.
So they have to verify it for liability, because if they have to rearrange and shut down a production for a day, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars per day.
A lot of times the actors...
Millions if it's a movie with Tom Cruise.
Jesus
whatever.
Christ.
Yeah.
Or when Robert Pattinson got COVID. that was that.
Yeah.
But like, or you hear about like actors who get picked up, and I think to myself, well, it's not necessarily them being like, drive me to the set. It's more like, you better be on set and we're sending a driver.
In Spain, they pick you up everywhere to go to set. They don't trust actors
There you
to
go.
drive themselves.
It's a trust issue.
Ever.
I
And in New York, same
Yeah.
thing. They pick you up because they don't. In New York, you get picked up because they don't trust actors. Something happens with traffic,
Subways,
the subway,
whatever it is.
whatever. They can't. So every actors and productions in New York are picked up.
Yeah.
When you're on location, you're always picked up.
okay.
But yeah, a lot of it is just like, because then the liability is you just have to be there at that time,
Right.
and I can pick you up.
Production needs to make it happen. They're like, we'd rather have somebody drive you than be
Trust.
than trust.
Yeah.
So it's a lack of trust. So
Yes.
that's it.
Well,
Don't come
actors
through
are
with your
not-
promises, and then people will
They're
do
not
more
the
things
most
for you.
reliable human beings on the planet. Most of them aren't necessarily like OCD type A, like, you know, my suit is pressed. Like, some of them are, but for the most part, actors are creatives. And creatives and artists are not necessarily the most consistent and, you know.
This is just my personal thing. Creatives
Yeah.
hate it.
Okay.
That's all. That's it. We'll discuss it on some other time because we're wrapping on time.
Great. And on that note, we will
Tell me your
see you
feelings about
guys Thursdays in English and
Yes.
Spanish and Monday. Mondays in Spanish.
Mondays, yes.
Mondays in Spanish.
Okay. Ta-ta. Ciao.